From News Channel 8, this is News Talk with Bruce DePoint.
Welcome in on what's been a really busy and perhaps exhausting Friday. Good to have you with us today. Our first guest this time has just taken on a new role. In addition to being Ward 2's representative on the District of Columbia Council and chairman of the panel's all-important Finance and Revenue Committee, Jack Evans is now chairman of the board that oversees Metro. This his first in-depth interview since assuming that post. Welcome back. Good to have you with us.
Great to be here.
And congratulations, I think.
I think, great. No, thank you.
So this was something that your colleagues, are there 16?
16 members of the board,
So
yes.
the Metro board has 16 people. They're from D.C., Maryland, Virginia, and now the federal government, because they're ponying up a lot of money. You'd think they should. Part of your task going forward is to make sure that spigot is open full blast. So the board picks its own chairman. Why did you want this job, and why did they pick you?
Well, I wanted the job because I really appreciate Metro. I was on the board from 1991 to 2000, which was in many ways the golden age of Metro. We were completing the 101-mile system. It was the shining example of regional cooperation and was really a respected organization. I came back in January of last year to an organization that was far from that had lost its luster, lost its regional enthusiasm.
Its mojo.
All of that. And I really want to return Metro to where it was. So I'm really a big Metro fan is the answer. And I believe being chairman of the board, working with our new general manager, Paul Wiedenfeld, who's terrific, that together with the other board members, we can really make a difference.
Where does your role, I mean, you're one of 16. When it comes time to vote, you're one of 16. But obviously, being chairman's an important role. Where does the chairman's role fit in with the general manager's role? I mean, obviously he's more day-to-day, and the board is policy and oversight, but it's not in your nature to be a hands-off or sit back and wait for a crisis kind of guy. So help us sort of figure out how those two jobs meet.
Yeah, and it's a great question. And let me just on the one point, on the voting part, there are 16 members, but only 8 get to vote. And there are 2 voting members and 2 alternates from each jurisdiction. Now, in the committees, you're correct on the Finance Committee, for instance, everybody gets a vote. But on the actual board votes, it's only the 8 people, which was still an unwieldy number. That's one of my issues about this 16-member board. But your better question is, how does the general manager and the chairman of the board work together? And I'm going to sit down with Paul next week, and we're going to talk about what role I can play to support him. His role is the most important. He is the operating guy at Metro who is charged with fixing all the problems we have. What can I do to be supportive of him? And then, more importantly, I come to the board with 25 years on the D.C. Council. I know everybody in the region. And can I be helpful in going around the region, explaining Metro's issues, Congress getting more money from the federal government to support Metro? Because keep in mind, the federal government pays us $150 million a year in capital dollars, no money in operating, zero. And the jurisdictions kick in almost $1 billion. So the federal government should contribute to that. And so that's what I'll be looking at.
You think the federal government should have a dual funding role? Capital, meaning cars and maintenance and all that, yes, and operating, day to day.
Yes, and if they're going to have...
Why would they do that?
Well, they have 4 seats on the board, just like the other jurisdiction, 2 voting, 2 non.
But why would the federal government pay to run a local subway system?
Well, it's a regional system, and keep in mind, we transport about 70% of the federal workers. And so, again, if the federal government wants to have its workforce being taken back and forth to work, it has to ride on Metro. And so they should want to be supportive of the system. And I want to make this point. We are America's subway. We are not a subway in New York or Philadelphia or San Francisco. We're America's subway in the nation's capital. And the federal government has been great to Metro, helped build the system, and now at the time to support the operating side is very important to us.
You think you have the ability to make that case in a potentially persuasive way with the folks who decide where federal money goes?
And I really do. And I think we have some great allies on the Hill. Certainly our own Congresswoman, Eleanor Holmes Norton, has been terrific with Metro. Jerry Conley, had an opportunity to talk with Jerry, a big supporter of Metro and helping to get federal funding. People like John Delaney, Chris Van Hollen, all of these people, and certainly Barbara Mikulski, who we're losing, who was a great fan of Metro. I believe the regional cooperation is there to help get the feds to take a different look at us.
Phone lines open as we talk this Friday with D.C. Councilman Jack Evans, Democrat from Ward 2, Chairman of the Finance and Revenue Committee. He's a member of the Metro Board, and as of about 24 hours ago, he is the chairman of the Metro Board. We're going to talk a lot about Metro, but we're also going to talk about the region's response to the blizzard of 2016. And as always, we love it when you call in with questions or comments. So we've posted our number to the bottom of the screen, and we invite you to call 703-387-1020. We'll go to the phones as your questions come in, and do join the conversation today. A lot going on in our world here in the Washington region right now, and it's always great to have you participate. So take advantage of the conversation. Do involve yourself, and we'll go to the phones as your calls come in at 703-387-1020. Were you aware before Friday a week ago that the Metro was going to pull buses off the road, shut down the subway, go dark, and sort of wait out the storm? Were you aware of that before the rest of us found out about it publicly? And was that the right decision in terms of all the different considerations that Metro faces? Safety and getting the system back up and running after the storm as quickly and safely as possible.
In answer to your question, no, I was not aware that that decision was going to be made, but I do support the decision. Frankly, I would love to find ourselves in the future in a position like other cities, New York and Philadelphia, that are able to run the system 24 hours a day through these kind of events. But Metro suffers from an enormous disadvantage right out of the box because of the way it was built. Without getting too technical, we are a two-track system, meaning we go this way and that way, and that's it. New York is a four-track system. They can close down half of their system and keep running the trains. And I believe Philadelphia is a three-track system. So fundamental.
And that means they can store cars
absolutely
in the tunnels out of the snow.
And continue to run the system.
And continue to run the system.
They can do construction and continue to run the system, which is why Metro can't run 24 hours a day. We have to close down every night to do a lot of the maintenance and repair work. So you start with that fundamental problem. Now, when the decision to pull the buses and close the rail, on the bus side, we learned on the Wednesday before the storm, remember? We had buses everywhere, full of people stuck everywhere. We couldn't even get to the buses to help the people who were stuck. So
because of an inch of snow.
Yeah, because of an inch of snow and the ice and everything that was there. So the thought process is, isn't it safer? Now, we're going to inconvenience people, and we know that. But isn't it better not to have buses full of people stuck all over the place and trying to get to them rather than not run the buses at all and wait till the streets clear up? So that, I believe, was a good decision. And on the rail side, you know, we have this third rail we have to keep clean in order for the rails to run, for the trains to run. And the ice and the snow that builds up on that can prevent them from happening. And then you've seen rails crack in this freezing weather. So again, the decision is, should we send these trains out there knowing that some of them are going to break down? So
if they had left the entire, I assume the fleet is outdoors. I mean,
yes.
They don't have the crazy number of garages you would have to store.
Right.
And potentially, given the weather that we have here in the Mid-Atlantic region, it would be, I mean, it's a nice to have that you could store all the rail cars inside overnight, but given the other needs and the competition for dollars, the scarcity of dollars, you could argue it would be a waste of money given that we don't have blizzards all the time,
right? All the time, right, exactly.
But I'm curious about this. If they had said, we're going to leave the cars outside and get 18 inches of snow dumped on them and then try to open up the system when the storm passes, have you heard anyone offer a guesstimate as to how long it would have taken to clear those cars
out? Dig out all the cars, yeah.
And we did a week, 2 weeks?
Yeah,
how long
it could have taken a while. And as it was, we did still have a lot of cars outside and we were able to dig them out, but we did have a bunch inside that we were able to use immediately after the storm had passed when we cleared the tracks. So again, it's a judgment call. You're always going to be second guessed on things, but we are where we are. The other point that Paul made, which I think is a good one, he was the head of BWI, as you know, and he said he had seen equipment at BWI that Metro doesn't have to help clear snow. So one of the things we have to look at is there something we could be buying in anticipation of future storms, keeping in mind, you and I have been here when it never snows at all.
Do you think that part of Paul Wiedefeld's thinking, either in the front of his, in the back of his mind, or maybe the front of his mind, was, I'm not sure what we're able to do, and I would rather be really cautious and outperform expectations than try to do something that I'd like to do and fall short and have it be one more sort of thing where people can criticize.
Yeah, one more black eye for Metro. Yeah, exactly. I don't know Paul's thinking, certainly, and haven't talked to him about it, but that sounds like a logical approach to take. Sure.
Talking with D.C. Councilman and Metro Board member Jack Evans. We'll take a break, come back, more of our conversation here on this Friday, right after this.